5 minutes. Welcome. We'll begin momentarily. Please welcome your MC for the 2022 ARCOS Conference, Miss Danny Hayes.
Yay! Oh my goodness, this is so much fun. Welcome everyone. Even those of you I haven't met yet, but trust that it's 8 o'clock Monday morning, Wednesday. I got a lot of time to meet you all. So if I haven't met you yet, please come up and say hello. Welcome and thank you for coming. Is it so wonderful to be able to see someone's face not on a flat screen? Oh my goodness. I just told Justin over here that hugging the laptop screen when you're trying to have a virtual meeting just does not work. It is so not right. So it's great that you ventured out and you all came to be with us. It's like a family reunion, and we love that you're here. So thank you so much for coming. If there's anything we can do, any ARCOS people, stop us, ask us. We're here to help you. A little bit of housekeeping, okay? In case of an emergency, I know we all like to start meetings with a safety briefing. So in the unlikely event of an emergency, follow the signs here and exit through the lobby. You can see where we are, right? You are here. Make your way out to the lobby, get as far away from the building as possible, and just be safe. Our muster station will be in the parking area just outside of reception. Hopefully we won't need to do that. Another important point, if you're feeling ill, if you just don't feel well, if you need anything, take care of yourself, stay in your room, use the mobile app to message Lisa, Federico, or me if you remember my name and not Lisa's. Just let us know that you're okay and what we can do for you, and anything we can do to help you to feel better or get home if that's what needs to happen. Let us know and we'll be right on it. Okay, next thing, this mobile app. So I brought my phone up on purpose. Hopefully you've all downloaded it and put it on your phone. There have been fun pictures on the activity feed, so I know that some of you are taking advantage of the social aspects of it. I want to point out there is an option, well, my schedule there, we'll do that in a second. There's an attendees page where you can look for people who are here and you can message them directly. It might be the place that you would go to say, hey, this is somebody I really want to meet. Their picture may or not be in there. If you connect your login to the app to your LinkedIn profile and you have a picture there, it'll bring your picture into the app, so that may give people a means to find you. Another thing about the app is the schedule. The entire conference schedule is in the All Sessions tab, if you will, on the app. And you can scroll through and see the sessions you want to attend when they're breakouts, and add them to your own schedule. So then there's a My Schedule place. You can also add events of your own. So if you need to meet a certain person at a certain time, you've arranged to have a conversation, you can put it on your schedule. The app also, for all the sessions, there is a survey. We really take it seriously. So let us know what you thought of the session you attended. What could we have done better? What was really helpful? All of that information, we will all read it, and it really helps inform us and direct us next year. You'll also notice in the sessions, there's a way you can submit questions while you're in the session. I think up to a half an hour after the sessions, perhaps too. So someone in the room will be watching the app, and if there's a question you don't feel like you want to raise your hand and ask, or if we don't have a mic that runs up and puts mic in your face to ask it, and you want to submit a question here on the app, and we will try to answer it. So at the risk of blowing up my phone, if any of you want to try that right now, send a question to the general session, and we'll see if it shows up on my phone, and I'll try to answer it if I can. Okay, tick, 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 got those. Okay. I already said that about the attendees, so there's your attendees list. All right. So let's see. Let me check again. All right, that is enough housekeeping, okay? So let me reassure you that you are exactly where you needed to be today. This is where you need to be, and you're in just the right place at just the right time to learn and network and make friends. So sit back and let's kick off this conference. It's our 19th. Kick off this conference with a quick video before we go into a really dynamic keynote. So thanks again for joining us, and sit back and enjoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Mr. Bruce Duff.
Wow. I don't think that was real weather, so if anybody feels like they had to go to their storm center to get some work done, it's okay. It's okay. Good morning, everyone. Very emotional up here because I feel like for 2 years we haven't been able to do this. It's kind of who we are at ARCOS and part of what we do. It's so excited to be here and be able to collaborate. I'm not sure, is this a Zoom meeting? I can't tell. I can't see with all the lights. I can't touch a screen, but I felt with Danny, I had to wipe smudges off of my laptop as well. I think we're pretty well sick of Zoom. From last night, even this whole conference, they said, let's not do it in Zoom again. We're just going to wait and do it when we be in person. But it's great to be here, some things returning to normal. I think we're not quite out of the woods. We've got inflation going on and the Great Resignation, which I think all of us have felt in some way. Supply chain issues, labor shortages. I mean, lots of things that all of us are looking at and trying to figure out. But we're finally here. And we need to look today now, how do we be successful? How can we be safe? And then how can we be mindful of everything else that's going on with what we've just been through? Who's done conference planning before? Anybody see some hands out there? I mean, it's hard enough in normal times, but I kept having the Clash song in my head going along, should I stay or should I go? And I adapted the lyrics like we do tonight to the songs, but should we stay and will they go? Didn't know whether we were going to have this conference, and people putting together great presentations that we want to share here, because that's what we do, and then all of a sudden they can't travel for some sort of restriction, but it all came together. We're here, and we've got a grand plan for you this week with many, many best practices presentations. So hopefully the pandemic is easing. I think the news likes to keep playing with it. It's hard to know what's real, but it seems like things are coming back to normal. We know it caused significant change for your industry. I mean, you were always on the front line, right? You didn't have a choice. We at ARCOS, technology company, we could be at home and work. But on top of the pandemic, it was another year of billion-dollar weather or climate disasters, right? And it seems like, just when we get around the corner, then something else comes up. And if you look at the history here, while the number of events has been hovering around 20 a year, which is a lot, the cost in emergency response for these events has been skyrocketing. And for the first time in over, I believe, 95% of the nation right now here in the US is in a severe drought, right? Some say maybe even irreversible. And the West Coast knows that, right? I mean, you've been in a horrific drought, and NASA said that last year alone was probably the worst year in 500 years for us to get water out of the sky. Another one of the events last year, one of the biggest one, was the cold front that hung out over Texas for a week and a half. You know, $195 billion of damage and losses because of that. And you know, what we've seen everybody doing is you're putting a lot of investment into resilience of the infrastructure because the costs are so high on the other end to put it back in. And you've been doing a lot of proactive maintenance prevention. So what we've read, and it was corroborated by 2 utilities we talked to last year, for every dollar you're spending in that resilience and proactive maintenance, it's saving roughly $20 on restoration time and response. So, you know, it's important. What the 2 utilities said to us, we've got to find tools and ways to do work better and much more efficient. When you couple the pandemic and all those events with supply chain, great resignation, compounded by workforce availability, I mean, this industry, utilities specifically, you know, is in year 3 of the 5-year wave of retirement. You know, while it's hard enough to get people to come because there's not enough people in the workforce to do everything that we need to keep the world working, you're losing a lot of folks to retirement, people that have worked really hard and, you know, ready to move on. So it's quite a lot to contend with. But, you know, we're here. That's why we have this conference. That's why we take on the industry's toughest challenges, and we're happy to do that. What's key is the partnership, and I'll talk about that more in a moment, but we want to hear from you this week. You know, what is going on that we need to know so we can collaborate on this platform? We've gone from 1 product to 6 products and growing. It's a very integrated platform, and we're not done yet. So we have an agenda that's going to help drive that, so you don't have to get super proactive unless you want. Use the conference app to send us some ideas, but we're going to be driving that out of you so we make sure that we walk away here knowing, you know, the biggest challenges you face. The other thing I think everybody learned is what are the critical infrastructure industries? And boy, you know, transportation, electricity, gas, and water all of a sudden rose way to the top over the last 2 years. And on behalf of ARCOS, my family, our friends, people we know, we just want to thank you for what you do every single day to keep it all working. I mean, the headlines, you know, we get to see the bad stuff and, you know, catastrophic storms or events where you got to clean up after, but we know just even on the good days, there's so many moving pieces that you have to deal with to keep us safe, you know, keep the power flowing when the winds are at 120 miles an hour, you know, keep service while the infrastructure may be cracked or leaking in some way, temperature is 110, or, you know, you might be at minus 20. You know, you make that happen all the time because you truly are first responders that work for private industry. And we can't thank you enough. We'll give a big round of applause from our team for what you do. Thank you. Thank you. 19 years, partnership, collaborating, that's a long time. That's half a career, you know, if you're thinking in the job world. I want to do a little bit of survey work, so this is going to be our first little stretch exercise. So if you're here for the first time, could you please stand up? We'd like to see all the first-timers. It's quite a few of you here. Look at that. That is awesome. All right, so you stay standing just for a second. So for you still at the tables looking at all these folks, look at the couple tables around you. If you haven't met each other, please make sure you do that so we can start connecting, you know, with friends and family here. So, okay, thank you, sit down. Now I want to point out who the industry veterans are and maybe, you know, some true ARCOS wizards. So if you've been to 2 conferences or more, please stay standing. Stand up for 2 conferences or more. Yeah? Okay. Stay standing if you've been to 3. Okay, a lot of people up. 5. Wow, we still have people. Okay, 8. Wow, Bubba, you're still up. That's Bubba back there. You're not at the spa yet. Okay, all right. 10. Wow. 15. Okay, woo. Okay, so those are the veterans. Please seek them out. That's fantastic. Yeah, unbelievable. Oh, Danny. 20. Sorry. The lights are bright, Danny. Oh, that's funny. We've got close to 100 of you folks here, and more important, I think, 42 different organizations represented. Typically, our group's bigger, but the way things went this year, we don't have as many as we normally would, but this is a tremendous size audience to do a lot of networking and hear what we're doing. 60% are here for the first time, so when we had them stand up, 60% of the audience. Those are people who just joined the family, who I'll share in a moment. It could be people who've always wanted to go but not attended because they couldn't in the past. Or a lot of you have people that move around in the organization and a new team comes on to support the ARCOS products. So if you're shy, and believe it or not, even though I'm up here doing this, my normal state is to be a little more introverted or shy. Sometimes I like people to introduce me to other folks, so come see me, see anybody on the ARCOS team. If there's a company or an individual you want to meet, and we will personally take you over and introduce them. All right, steering committee. This was chaired by Stephanie Mormon of First Energy this year, who last minute had travel restrictions from her company, couldn't attend, but all the folks you see up here on this slide worked tireless hours behind the scenes to put this agenda together. So I'd like to go through each person, and if you're here, I know some of you are here, please stand up so people can see you. Starting with Darren Reeb of American Electric Power. Darren, you out there? Thank you, Darren. Zach DeLeon of Pedernales Electric Cooperative. Don't think Zach is here. Frederick Rumery, I know he's here from Lincoln Electric. Thank you. Stephanie, I already talked about. Patrick Turner, Alabama Power. I know Patrick's here. There he is. Jeff Plackus, who many of you know, he's been on the steering committee before. PSEG, Long Island, couldn't be with us to travel today. Yamajahi Pickard, Southern California Gas. Is Yamajahi here? There he is. And then Andrew Koo of Con Edison. Do we have Andrew here? I think New York still kind of has some travel restrictions. But yeah, thanks for giving them a big round of applause. Feel free to meet with them today. Thank you. Thank you, folks. So let's get into the agenda and what we're going to cover and some of the themes. First off, we've already had a whole day here. We had training yesterday, many sessions. A lot of you went. Show of hands who went to training yesterday, at least one session, right? So that's something we always have on the front end of the conference. You want to learn about new products, or you're in implementation, or you just want to see what else it can do, sign up for those. In addition, we have, and it's going to be where you registered, just outside of where you registered, we have Test Drive Alley. So we're going to have a team there all throughout the day. If there's any product you hear about and you want to go see it demonstrated, go over there, book an appointment, and they can take you through anything we have. We also have our ARCOS support team here, which is awesome. 7 to 4 means when they're going to be at the booth. You know we're 24/7, but we have representatives here, and they're working. So if you have a question or you wanted to put a face that's not on a camera to an actual name, they are there, and they would love to meet all of you. Third opportunity here is the ARCOS Idea Bank. So Danny talked about that a little bit. It's an application to allow you to direct channel feedback to us for features, products, whatever you think would be helpful, something to make the user experience easier on the product. Perfect for the Idea Bank. We used to collect that. So Bubba, you would remember this, Patrick. Some of the folks have been around for a while. We used to have a Post-it note wall in here where we would hand out Post-it notes and we would write those ideas. So we've gotten up with the times here with a mobile app. But we used to gather all those, and those would be input after we discuss them, would be input to our product roadmap, and we'd schedule those features to grow the platform. So log as many ideas as you have while you're here, because Matt Abbott, our head of product management, and his team are going to be using the Wednesday morning session to rack and stack the ones that seem to jump to the top and then we're going to have a live mic session for you to socialize why that would be important to you, where's the value to your organization, how does that make you more efficient, so we can start to prioritize where we want to put this in our roadmap. So don't miss that session. All right, the agenda itself. Today's all about innovation. You're going to hear some success stories directly from the companies, or we're going to be featuring them from American Electric Power, from First Energy. Stephanie's actually going to zoom in, so we're going to make that all work. Alabama Power, and we're going to hear from Southern Company. And specifically, not just the success and the things they can do in the product, but what value does it drive for the organization? That's what's key. What is the business outcome they were able to achieve? So in addition to that, we're going to do 2 presentations on roadmap. So one will be this afternoon, and then the other one will be tomorrow. So we're going to get into what we're doing short term, and then tomorrow talk a little bit longer term planning for the product. Tomorrow night, we're going to have the annual Oscars award event. This is Danny's full-on Hollywood production with many supporting cast members. This was kind of a let's have some fun event 15 years ago, and it's a full production with red carpet, which we put out because it was the Oscars, and then people started dressing for the event, so now we got to have themes. So if you haven't shopped for this yet, it's Old Hollywood night. But we will have a great dinner, free drinks, and we're going to have the ARCOS band play. And the band is a whole nother phenomenon. New and classic hits. It's not, DJ, you can tell them anything you want. But we've taken songs you all know, and we've adapted the lyrics to the industry and had a lot of fun with that. We used to be the only ones that could write the music, but our customers started petitioning us for their songs with their words, and they were pushing yesterday to get into the play set. And I don't know if they made it or not, but that's a lot of fun. And the reason I bring it up, sometimes on the first night people say, well, I'm going to go off property and go do something else, and then the next day they hear, oh my gosh, everybody said I should have been there, and they had a great time, and they had free drinks. And we don't want to hear that. So the complaint department will be closed on Tuesday to hear any of that. You definitely want to be there if you can go, so please join us. Day 2 is going to be the product roadmap, longer term planning. And then we're going to have some presentations from a couple different companies, panel and then a fireside chat, on emergency preparedness and emergency management. So everything from drill platforms that they're using that have been super successful and how they incorporate our platform in that, as well as actual events that they've responded to and what they were able to achieve through the automation we gave them. San Diego Gas and Electric, which I think is right in front of me somewhere. The lights are really, right here, right in front of me, thanks. They are going to have a fireside chat and talk specifically about planning that you need to do on the West Coast that may be the same, but in some cases very different from what you may need to do on the East Coast. So that'll be a very special presentation. We're looking forward to that. Tuesday night, ARCOS Fest out by the pool. We will have great food, free drinks, you know that by now, games, music, dancing, and then, I don't know, sometimes there's a surprise. Pretty sure we're locked down. I don't know where Lisa is. I think we've surveyed the hotel property in a half-mile ring to make sure there's no sprinkler heads, so that we don't have what happened in 2018 in San Antonio. We had this great event up on the hillside on the driving range, facing the city with the lights. It's awesome. And all of a sudden, they forgot to shut the sprinkler heads off, the timer. Literally, the first one that went off threw a server table right up in the air. And they took their tray and dove on it and said, everybody run, I got it. So we're not going to have that this time, we hope. But there is a pool there, so there are opportunities to get wet if you don't watch where you're walking or, too many great drinks. So that'll be a lot of fun. Day 3 is all about ideation. So again, this will be the session where product management will lead. We're going to go through ideas, and we can also take some ideas in real time. Depending on how that discussion goes, the light bulb may go off for something else you think would be good for the product. So that's what we've got in store the next 3 days. So now what I'd like to do is transition into what we call State of the Union, just a little bit about ARCOS, where we are, how many people are in the family now, who's new, and some of the things we've been able to accomplish since we last saw each other. So you're going to see several slides here with all the customers. Many of them have multiple operating companies inside them, but on behalf of ARCOS, I'd just like to thank all of you. I mean, last year was a great year of collaboration and execution. A year like no other, because you would figure with 2020 it was bad enough, but I mean, there was a lot of challenges last year, and you guys worked together tremendously. So I'd like to introduce some of the new folks. Anyone in green is new to the family, and I know the Connexus team is here, and they joined on. I'd like them to stand up so we can welcome everyone from Connexus Energy. Where are you? There we are. Great to have you here. We have folks here as well from Jackson EMC. If we could have Jackson EMC team stand. Looks like they're in the back. One, yeah. Yep. Great. They're managing their digital transformation process with a really unique, very special strategic planning process that's helping them wrap their hands around that and move it quickly. So feel free to talk to them. We may be hearing from them as well as they share that out. And then Rappahannock Electric Cooperative. Do we have folks from Rappahannock? Did they make it? I think they did. Yes? Oh, over here. Great. Good. I knew you were here. So also looking at digital transformation and all the possible automation tools to attack that, as we're trying to get more things done in the field using mobility and other tools. I spoke earlier about all the change you've been dealing with. We've done a lot of change too. Oh, someone didn't pay the power bill. We have 142 employees, and I think that's dated already. It was a week old. I think we might be closer to 150 now. We're hiring like crazy to scale the business, and we're serving over 248 organizations. That's also growing. Uptime availability, if you're in the software as a service world, the application needs to be there when you need it. And we're really proud of 99.96. We want to get it to 99.99. Many software providers will put a number like that up, but they carve out of it. If they have to do any maintenance or unexpected things, it doesn't count against that reliability metric. In our case, that's with all the updates, which, as you know, are 26 a year. So this product is moving incredibly fast. Again, you're bringing us all these ideas. We want to get them into the platform so we can pay it forward for everybody else. So very impressive given the number of releases. We also made the Inc. 5000, which is the list of US fastest privately growing companies, 7 times now. And we found out, we're just trying to do what we do, but we found out only 3% of the Inc. 5000 companies can say that. And we think we probably will be on the list again this year. So these numbers will continue to grow as we grow, but I just want to give you a quick at-a-glance of where we are today. Over the years, the platform has grown tremendously. I mean, if you look at where we started, kind of after-hours call-out, now we're into blue sky planning, we're into daily operations management of work and resources and equipment. We do incident management, super sophisticated shift bidding and shift scheduling, all the way up to full-on emergency response, right? So platform has grown, it's integrated, and you're going to see the theme, and you're going to hear it all throughout the next 3 days. It's critical that you have resources and work in one place where you can act on it, because that's the only way things get done. So I want to take you through each product really quick, in case some of them are new. Call out, I think everyone knows. So let's bring that up. There we are. Oop, too fast. No, we're good. Call out, I think everybody knows call out. What I would add is that we have 2 new features that can be purchased. One is voice recognition. So in addition to punching the touch tones, you could press or say one to accept a call out. We've also added SMS texting. So the ability to broadcast the call out through a text message and reply back that way. So it's giving you a lot more flexibility and options in addition to the mobile app to accept call outs, but we also know it's extending your reach, because we've still heard that in some parts of your service territory, a call may not go through, but a text message will. So we think that's helpful, when you're way out in the boonies, or you're trying to get the group that are out in the hunting cabin to come in, because we hear that's usually one of the more remote locations. You've got some of your folks. So that's call out. We acquired roster apps in 2018 because we knew we needed to add some super sophisticated shift bidding, shift trading, shift swapping, all rules-based, so that you could be way more flexible and free your time up to be able to focus on operations. And roster apps is used by almost every major airline for their ground crews. So at the airport, the people you see at the airport, the gate, luggage, people doing de-icing, vending, all of those folks, critical they're all in the right place at the right time so the flight doesn't take a delay and you can get on to your way. We've seen in utilities, grid ops, control rooms, customer service centers having shift bidding, shift trading, shift swapping going on as a 24/7 operation. We need to add that to the platform, so we're integrating that. SAM6 we acquired in 2016. It's the foundation of what is today now Mobile Workbench. And with Mobile Workbench, we've been evolving the product very, very fast. We've been working with several large customers to help them manage construction processes, inspection and maintenance processes, damage assessment, repair, and then all the way up to retire and replace on their assets. The capability it offers, without taking anything else out that you use, because all the other systems can stay in place, is puts on a single pane of glass all the available resources you really have, along with the work that needs to be done, so you can react to that on the day of and get folks out the door. It also leverages work planning, work management systems, OMS systems. They can all do what they do, but they're typically focused on the work, not on the resource side. So being able to get the work from those systems to Workbench and be able to pair that up with the resources you have available. Product's moving very, very quickly, but it's allowing people to get more work done because I can get crews out the door and they can be much more efficient because I can do everything on my mobile device and skip all the paperwork. Crew Manager was driven by this group heavily, and it's the replacement of that whiteboard, because whiteboards, as much you might say that's very antiquated, they're pretty flexible. You can change things real quick on a whiteboard. So how do we do that? Centrally storing all the data and then be able to give anyone access to see what resources do I have? Where are they? How long have they been working? Who are they crewed with? What are they qualified to do? What are they working on? I mean, all of that, how much time do they have left? All of that information in Crew Manager, and we made significant extensions to our lodging and logistics capabilities. So if you are the host for a lot of crews that have come to help you, where are their hotel rooms? How are they getting fed? Where and when do we fuel their trucks? How do they get work? So all that stored for reporting purposes internally or externally. If you have to prove what you did at some point later, that's Crew Manager. Then we've talked a lot about the need for sharing and acquiring resources. We've heard some things that the industry is just incredibly stretched right now to have enough people to do all the work. And that's not just talking about the employees, but it's the employees and the contractor complement that is the workforce every day. So being able to get those resources very quickly is key. And with Resource Assist, we're amassing the industry's only database of the industry workers, starting with the contractors. We've got 18,000 FTEs in that database now, and that's up 30% from where we were at the beginning of last year. And to give you a sense for the customers using it, they requested 42,000 FTE resources during the year 2021. So lots of plans going on there, and we basically got to have a way to manage contractors because they're anywhere from 20 to 50% of the workforce from what we're seeing, and you can't treat them differently. You want to be able to give them work and get them to work as quickly as possible. Lastly, incident management, which we're going to hear about more tomorrow, but the ability to stand up the incident response team using ICS or whatever your structure is in minutes and seconds versus hours, and then being able to get the resources deployed so they can get out and activate for the event. We did a lot of work in the past couple years, First Energy being a big contributor, to integrate Crew Manager with Incident Manager. So the incident team can be managed in Crew Manager as well as any of the other response resources you may have that are addressing that event. So call out one product quite a ways back now, and all the way up to 6 products and growing, all integrated in one platform for work and for resources. There's another event you've heard about that we do, and it's a Utilities Operations Executive Summit. We've done it 5 times. I bring together 10 to 12 senior executives. We talk about the next 3 years. What's coming on the horizon? What do we need to be thinking about and anticipating right now that we'd want to start designing for so you have it when you need it? And what you're seeing here are what we've been hearing. So we want to see our resources and we want to know what they're doing. And when they say our resources, it could be a hybrid of their folks plus others. Speed, how do I get resources faster? Both mutual assistance contractors and employee crews. Also, in terms of once I've got them, where can I get some efficiency in getting them to work? Right? We've heard, boy, if I could get 15 minutes more of wrench time out of each of my crews, that'd be a huge win. I almost got nauseous, I think I did, in front of the group, when I asked them, well, how much time do you get today? They said, it went around the room, 3.5 hours to maybe 5. Now, some of that's drive time, right? You got to go to and from sites, but it's the inefficiencies of being able to move information quick enough for the crews who are ready to go to be able to get the job done. ICSR way, and how do I drive down operation and maintenance costs? Big one. And then last, we have all this data, they say, in all these different systems. How can I bring that together to streamline what I'm doing? And then with lots of folks retiring and having to hire new, where can your software help me by integrating all that to give me potential recommendations of what I should do next? Because I don't have all the travel knowledge as a new person, right? So how are we going to give them decision support tools? One of our core values is we do what we say. It's one of our 4 core values, and what you're seeing here is how we've responded over the past 5 years. And I'm going to talk about some of the stars because those are recent additions. So resource sharing, the ability to request, respond, and electronically exchange those resource rosters really with anyone, whether you're providing or you're receiving is the goal. And that's where we're heading. We're maybe halfway there and past that. Improved wrench time. So for mobile workbench, we've added a construction process use case, and we've also done timekeeping management, in addition to many other use cases we support in mobile workbench. So that list is going to continue to grow. For leveraging data, especially to help smaller utilities, particularly the electric cooperative community, they use an API standard called Multispeak, where if you're complying with that, systems can share data back and forth. We've committed to that standard to help our smaller utilities in the electric cooperative market. And then driving down compatible units, the other thing we did in addition to all the other use cases in mobile workbench, but we've added a compatible unit library. So as you're putting assets in the field, replacing, retiring, doing repair work, we can update storerooms and update inventory systems of what was used, which is kind of important right now because of the lead times on equipment and assets that I heard at lunch yesterday. 80 weeks for a residential transformer. 80 weeks. It's a long time if you're a builder or a customer waiting for a house. So lots going on there. And then we've also, in addition to investing in the platform, we've been building up our management team and adding to our company. I've always been a proponent of good companies become great. They become great always because of the people you hire and the culture you put in. So I'd like to introduce the executive team. We've added quite a few folks to the team, and there's some familiar faces you're going to see here. So for the team, I can't quite see it, but if you could stand up or come forward. Why don't you stand up and come forward so everybody can see you, starting with Ross. Ross Fuller, yes. Ross, our Chief Operating Officer and Chief Financial Officer. He's been with us. Thank you. We're going to hold applause to the end because I want to make sure we get some of the stuff, but Ross, there you go. You got your own applause. Ross has been with us for 4 years already. Many of you know Ross from this conference, but he's also been working with you because he's the executive from ARCOS that represents with your executives. So glad to have Ross here. Lisa Federico. Lisa, in the back, there we are. Lisa, our Senior Vice President of Marketing, in charge of product strategy, product marketing, and demand generation. Oh, and by the way, her team is in charge of this whole event. So thank you, Lisa. Matt Abbott, where's Matt? Matt Abbott, Vice President of Product Management, came to us from Earth Solutions. Some of you may use Earth Solutions. It's an 811 DigSafe application as well as preventative maintenance and response. So Matt's on product management. We have Arjun Ramchandran. Where's Arjun? Arjun, Head of Customer Success, Customer Support, and our Professional Services Group. Came to us recently from Genesis, another system you may use for outbound customer management, outbound communications, and is really focusing on making sure that we put in the process that you get the outcomes you're looking for with the product and the value, along with having a great journey with us along the way, because we've got customers that are 15 years. That's a long time. We want you to have a great customer experience. So thank you, Arjun. Dove Rosenberg, where's Dove? Wow, there he is. Hey, Dove. Sorry, no lights over there. So Dove joined us recently as Vice President of Corporate Development, looking at a lot of things for us, but in some cases, like with SAM6 and with roster apps, a buy versus build of technology is the way we would want to go. So he's always looking for those opportunities, working closely with product management and the tech team, but also other complementary products that may add value to the platform for the industries we serve today, as well as some other critical infrastructure companies that want to join. Thank you, Dove. And then where's Oren? I saw Oren earlier. Oren Lieberman. Oren, you're okay. You are in the light. Oren, probably the toughest job of all. He's our Director of Strategic Programs, which means he has to manage everybody, including me, and keep us on task, because we like to chase shiny things. And he wants to make sure we're doing what we say, which is core value number one. Thank you, Oren. Great to have you on board. Did I leave anybody out? We're going to get, who? Oscar, yeah, I did. You're in the script, Oscar. You're right over here. Oscar Salazar. Thank you. Oscar, Chief Revenue Officer. Sorry, Oscar. Came to us from working at TIBCO. A lot of you use for middleware at the utilities, but really relevant experience in field service and work management with Zenier, IFS, and Click Software. So he was really excited about what we're doing and bringing work and resources together, which didn't see anywhere else anyone being able to do that because of how hard it is. So that's the team. Really excited. Let's give this group a really great round of applause. Thank you. So breathing deep here, it's so great to do this, especially when you feel like it's been taken away for 2 years. It's part of who you are. I'm just super proud, of what we've done here, together as partners. Close to 2 decades. I mean, that's kind of unheard of. We've been trying to go after your biggest challenges and biggest opportunities through this collaboration, through this partnership. I know there's folks here from Southern Company. Thank you to Southern Company for pushing our founder, Mitch McLeod, 19 years ago to start this group. Because when you're in a small startup trying to do a lot of things with not a lot of resources, taking on and starting a user group is really hard to do. But we did it, and we're forever grateful. I know Patrick's over there, and Baba, you're over there. And Baba, you're not with Southern Company, are you? You're with AEP. You're at the spa. Sorry. Maybe I need to go to the spa. But in any event, you've been adding so many capabilities to pay things forward for yourselves and for everyone to come. And so, working together, we're at 6 products. We're not done yet. There's going to be more that we build, that we may acquire and integrate into the platform. And I feel so fortunate that in 2008, I got the call from Mitch McLeod to join and have been able to lead for the last 12 years. I mean, to me, this is a perk of being able to work with all of you, especially to see how we can help you get things done faster. So we've got an incredible vision. We're going to be sharing that with you today. We have the world's best private equity investor behind us, Vista Equity Partners. I mean, all they do is software, and they are incredibly successful. They know what they're doing when it comes to building great software companies, and that's why they asked us to join. And we have a great team. So with all that in place, it's a perfect time for me to take a step back and pass the baton. And I think many of you know that from the February announcement that we issued that I'm going to retire at the end of June, and I'm in the process right now of turning over my duties to Otis Boogie Wittenberg, who's going to be up here in a moment. I plan to make that super seamless, super successful transition, and one of the things we want to do is come out and meet with you. So we're trying to set up meetings so you can have him come out, see what you're doing, share who the rest of the team is, who's your executives that are driving it, so that he can get to know your business better and hear things firsthand. But in the process of finding someone, which is really weird. I mean, I don't know if any of you replaced yourself. It's kind of it's an interesting journey, but want to make sure passion for what we do, right? That they've got, mission critical culture orientation around them. I don't know if we learned that from you or not, but I mean, we take seriously what we do. And also is super authentic. I mean, the one thing in my time with all of you is you are so down to earth, so real, and say it like it is, and have great pride in what you do, and are willing to shoot it straight so that we get the best products, the best service we can for all of our mutual customers. And Boogie checked all those boxes and then some. So at this time, I would like to bring Boogie up to stage and give him an incredible warm welcome. Please come up, Boogie.
Good morning, everyone. Bruce, thank you very much for that flattering introduction. My mom would be super proud. She wouldn't actually believe it, but appreciate that. Obviously, Bruce, congratulations on a great career. 40 plus years. You built a great company with such highly engaged customers, which is hard to do, and such highly engaged employees. So certainly, it's not all on me, but the team, the ARCOS team, and I have a lot of work to do to live up to that. So looking forward to trying to get that accomplished. So as many of you guys already know, like Bruce just said, we're working on a seamless transition. So as we move from Bruce's phenomenal leadership over the last decade to my hopefully phenomenal leadership over the next decade, he's gonna be working closely with me. So hopefully you won't feel any difference in the way we operate as we continue to improve those things. So thank you, Bruce. So you're probably wondering, who's this new guy? I mean, pretty simple. I hope to get to know every single one of you on a personal basis, but here's a couple of facts about me in the meantime. I am a Texas Aggie. I'm still a little bit upset we got snubbed in the NCAA tournament. That's where I went to school. I grew up in a town called San Angelo, which is just above my first kid in that family portrait. Now I live near Austin, Texas, in a great town called Dripping Springs, out in the Texas Hill Country. So yeah, those are a couple of facts about me. I've spent 20 years, as Bruce referenced, in sort of the mission-critical software and infrastructure space. So I'm new to utilities, gas, water, and airlines. I'll just tell you, I have a lot to learn, so I'll probably ask you guys a lot of dumb questions. Please be patient. I did spend a couple years at a company you've probably heard of called TXU in Dallas, Texas, when they were first starting the Texas deregulated movement. So I have spent a little bit of time in utilities, but I think things have changed a lot over the last 18 years. So mission critical. Mission critical means different things across different industries, but there are some common threads that run through that. So for example, e-commerce at a company like Under Armour is absolutely mission critical. In 2012, I can only imagine what it would be today, but in 2012, Under Armour was selling over $1 million a day on their e-commerce site in Q4. So if you're a shareholder at Under Armour or you're the person running digital business at Under Armour, absolutely mission critical for you. The same can be said for software applications that power patient care at nursing homes and assisted living centers. So any of you guys out there that have family or friends in these kind of facilities, you know how important it is to manage diet, to manage medication, to manage schedules. Again, that's a 24/7, 365 application that has to be running. If it's not, the consequences are pretty significant. And how many of you do most of your banking on your phone? Nobody? Come on, I know it's more than that. Who still goes to the branch? Maybe I should ask the question that way. A few people? Well, listen, even before COVID, but certainly after COVID, most of banking happens on this device that you carry around on your phone. And so you can imagine if that application is down or it's presenting incorrect information, bad things happen. Not only for every one of us as a consumer, like we want to see how much money we have, that's really important to us, but also if you're a business. If you're in the real estate space and you're sending out hundreds of wires on a daily basis and that doesn't work, business comes to a screeching halt. So the point of that is I've been blessed to be part of teams that have managed all that kind of mission critical software and infrastructure and even more. There's no doubt, and I think Bruce already talked about this, but the work that every one of you do every day is mission critical. In many cases, which I'll talk about in a second, one of the reasons I'm very excited about this opportunity is that you guys are the unsung hero. And not just like in the United States, but really if you think about every economy around the world is powered by the work that you guys do. And without it, we'd be in bad shape. So people do ask me, why'd you join ARCOS? There's a lot of opportunity out there, as Bruce referenced earlier. And there's a lot of reasons, honestly, but there's really two big ones I'll cover today. First is the industry. So I just talked about that. You guys do amazing work that's critically important and in many cases sort of unrecognized behind the scenes. Secondly, I love the collaboration. In the last 24 hours being here, just the collaboration amongst all the folks in the space is phenomenal. You really don't find that. You don't find that in private business. Everybody's competing with each other. They're always fighting. They're not really sharing best practices. And to me, that is very, very appealing. And furthermore, I think Bruce touched on this as well. I'm probably just going to repeat all the stuff he said. But I mean, the industry has really hard challenges to solve, whether it's a labor shortage, supply shortage, maybe changes in regulatory structures, crazy weather patterns that we're seeing. I mean, there are hard problems for us to solve together. And the fact that the industry is so collaborative and that ARCOS is able to work with you guys so closely is very exciting. And then finally, the company. ARCOS is a great company. I think of it as a small but mighty company. I'm pretty small too, I'm like 5'8", but I've got a lot of energy. ARCOS is the same way. 150 people that are focused really every day and committed to making it happen for you. And that's very exciting. Strong culture, as 24/7, 365 mentality, here to serve you, here to take your requirements and build great products. In addition, we have almost 50 people here, I think, from ARCOS. So I would encourage you to get to know as many of them as you possibly can. The better we know you, both personally and professionally, and we understand what you're working through, the better we can serve you. So take advantage of that. So these are the ARCOS core values. I'm not going to read them, but the spirit of them will never change. You've probably, for those of you that have been to the conference many years, you've probably heard this over and over. But people ask me, what are my kind of tenets of leadership? I have a lot, but there are 4 I'll talk about today, which is pretty simple. I'm a pretty simple, common sense person. But it's around employees, then customers, innovation, and culture. And so, sounds pretty simple. Employees are the most important asset in any organization. The same thing can be said for yours. Having a group of highly aligned and highly capable employees is, without that, nothing else matters. I mean, they're the ones that build the products, that build the business process, that build the service, that answer the phones. So it starts with employees. Fast second, or a close second, would be customers, which is all of you. Folks providing input and suggestions and feedback, the good, the bad, the ugly. We want to hear it all. I always say feedback's a gift, even when it doesn't taste very good. So keep the feedback coming. We appreciate that. Innovation and really rock-solid products are paramount, especially in a space like the space that ARCOS participates in and in your industry. And so that's a key tenet of the work we'll be doing as a leadership team. And finally, culture. People throw around the word culture all the time. You kind of hear this, you read it in every business book. The way I describe culture or define it is this is how your people behave in absence of a written policy. Or this is how your people treat a customer when you're not standing behind them listening to their phone call. And that culture is all informed by core values. These are ARCOS' core values. And that informs how we behave, and we're looking forward to continuing that. Along the lines of partnership, I mentioned this already, I'm excited about helping you guys solve these hard problems, and the entire team is. As Bruce mentioned, Mitch, I guess 19 years ago, started this conference based on feedback he was getting from Southern Company and others. And so we want to continue that tradition and maybe even accelerate it. Probably some of the most rewarding experiences in my career have been when we worked with customers or partners to co-develop, to co-create, to co-innovate and build things. And I think this industry, is perfect for that experience. So looking forward to doing that with all of you. So we have a growing portfolio. Bruce went through these products earlier, a growing portfolio of products, and we also have a growing family of customers. That's important for a number of reasons because it drives the innovation. I also believe it's important because we can learn from those that are closely in our industry, whether we're utilities, gas, water, airlines, or other critical infrastructure, but we can also learn from others. If you think about it, there's so much transformation happening in the world. The questions I ask myself is, what can we learn from Amazon? Amazon is a world beater, and they're doing everything differently. How can we translate some of that to our industry? What can we learn from other e-commerce providers that are moving the needle in terms of leveraging technology differently? Even fintechs that are pushing boundaries on how people manage their finances today. So this is exciting to me because we have a growing set of products and a growing family of customers, and for that means more learning and solving harder problems together. So as you guys all know, digitization, I can't even say the word, and mobile are all around us. Digitization. I'm an Aggie, of course, so we have a hard time speaking sometimes. How many people in this room took an Uber from the airport to the hotel? Okay, looks like probably more than half. Okay, so who would have thought, literally, who would have thought 15 years ago that basically every human, not everyone, but basically every human on the earth that's over 16 years old will be carrying around a computer with them literally every day, right? Like you all are now. Some of you guys are looking at them right now, which kind of hurts my feelings, but I'll get over it. But who would have thought about that, right? But that's the case. Even in other countries that have less sort of communications infrastructure, mobile is the way it goes. And so who would have thought that? Also, who would have thought, for those of you that took an Uber, even maybe 8 or 10 years ago, that you would literally use that computer to summon a stranger to come pick you up and then deposit you at some other location. All the while you're literally watching the map and wondering when they're gonna get there and if you're in the right spot, which I wasn't when I picked up my Uber in San Diego at the airport. So, the point is, there's so much opportunity and there's so much transformation happening with the data set that's created in this environment. It's geolocation data, it's image data, it's data about your resources, data about your assets. And not only the data, but then how do you leverage that? How do you put forth machine learning and artificial intelligence to help discern patterns and get more predictive? Those are really kind of the things that I'm excited about solving for you. You're gonna hear about that when we talk about Mobile Workbench in a bit. And along those lines, we hear a lot from our customers. Bruce talked about some of those themes. One of the 2 things we heard a lot in the most recent executive summit was that digital transformation now really touches every facet of your organization, every facet. And a key driver of that is this labor shortage. So I think, I might get the numbers a little bit wrong, but I think last year there were about 2.5 million call-outs for positions to fill that our software provided. And only about 62% of those got filled. So what that means, what I'm guessing it means, is that there was work that didn't get done, or it didn't get done as soon or as quickly as it needed to get done. So that is pointing to the labor shortage. One of the things I saw in the banking space, which I talked about a moment ago, was the fact that your employees, and as you think about hiring new employees, especially if they're millennials or they're younger, they want to use modern technology. What I saw in the banking space is you would have someone working in a bank all day on a back-end piece of software, maybe on a green screen, and then what does that person do at night when they go home? They shop on Amazon, they're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're on other modern apps, and that's what they expect. And so as we think about this labor shortage really across a lot of industries, you have to provide a tech stack, so to speak, that's interesting. People want to learn. Your employees and our employees, they really want to be on an inspiring mission. They want to be on a winning team on an inspiring mission, but they also want to learn and they want to leverage new technology. So something to keep in mind. And the point is that this digitization is not just about efficiency, but it's also about things like recruiting and retention. And then finally, these shortages that we're talking about don't just apply to labor, they apply to supplies. And again, Bruce referenced that as well. I've heard some of that in my conversations. So I don't have an answer here, but the questions, I ask a lot of questions, you'll get to know that about me. The questions I ask is, what can we learn from other industries? What can we learn from manufacturing or from automotive perhaps, where they've built marketplaces to share, to buy, sell, trade assets, to keep inventories of assets, on a regional or global basis. There's a lot to learn there. So I don't know the answer, but these are some things I look forward to exploring with you guys. Many of you guys are also pushing the boundaries of technology. And as Bruce, I feel like I'm saying that like 35 times. As Bruce also said, you're going to hear from a lot of those today. So the first one you're going to hear from is AEP. So that session's coming up right after mine, so you're a captive audience. You have to stay in here and watch that one. But they're really revolutionizing work management using Mobile Workbench. They're also using some other products, but what Darren's going to talk about today is they're leveraging of our platform around Mobile Workbench and really changing the way work is done in the field. And again, it's about driving efficiency, but it's also about deploying modern technology. And it's also, I think the other key theme is around how they leverage the field as part of building the solution. So they didn't do it sort of in the ivory tower and push it down. They literally worked with the field. And so when they rolled that out across 11 states, I think in 90 days, it was much more effective. And he's going to talk a lot about that. You're also going to hear from First Energy. Now, Stephanie Mormon, who's also the chair of our steering committee, I wish she was here to say thank you in person. She's going to zoom in tomorrow and talk about a couple things. The biggest theme she's going to talk about is how they are using ARCOS to help manage contractors. So as you guys all know, contractors are a really important part of the workforce for many of you, and maybe becoming even more important. So why manage work differently across your own employees and across contractors from multiple companies when you don't have to? Stephanie's going to talk about that. She's also going to briefly touch on Incident Manager and how they are innovating that product to be a key piece of the process in their ICS management. So you'll hear that from Stephanie tomorrow. And it's not just the largest IOUs that are innovating. I mean, Jackson EMC, kind of like ARCOS, small but mighty. They serve 141,000 users or members up in the Michigan area, I believe. Patrick, that's you in the back. I won't make you stand up again. But Patrick's going to talk a lot about their approach. Oh, you can stand up, thank you. Their approach and the framework that they're using to actually plan and then drive digital transformation. So, you know, if you're like me, you like to get right to the work, but there's really a lot of leverage in thinking and planning before you execute, and that's what Patrick's going to talk about. And finally, we had the Connexus Energy Group over here. I would encourage you guys. Y'all are all in one table. Y'all need to meet some other people. You know, branch out a little bit. Don't be scared. These guys are a very progressive cooperative, and we're glad you guys are here. They're new to the ARCOS family, which Bruce mentioned earlier. He stole my thunder because I was supposed to welcome them to the family. We're going to give a big round of applause and all that. But how about giving Connexus another round of applause? Welcome to the family. Okay, my dad used to say, he's been deceased for a while, but he used to say, he had a lot of crazy sayings. He was a rancher from West Texas, wore a cowboy hat every day, and he drove a Cadillac. No kidding, this is true. But he used to say the only person that likes change is a baby with a wet diaper. And he said a lot of other stuff too, which is inappropriate, but we all know that's the case. And I think what you're gonna hear as far as the trends and the themes is we have to all embrace change. Everything's changing around us. We have hard challenges to solve. And it's been it's been a tough year. It's been a tough year, or a couple of years actually, across all industries, and this one included. Like Bruce mentioned, again for the 37th time, you guys were already on the front lines. You know, you were already a frontline worker. That phrase probably became more popular during COVID. But you were already on the front lines, but you had to go think about how do you do your work differently? How do you respond? How do you produce the outcomes that you need to produce for your constituents? And you did that. So, you know, we're proud to be part of that process. I'm honored to be part of the team at ARCOS. Hopefully I hasn't said anything completely stupid that is too embarrassing to the team. But stay tuned. You know, the work that the company's done with every one of you is not over. There's so much more to do. And again, as I referenced, this collaboration and this partnership and the opportunity to co-develop, to co-create, to build better solutions is very appealing to me. Finally, like I just did for you guys, I would encourage you to take advantage of all the networking opportunities this conference provides, the great sessions, the breakouts, and everything else. Please come to the event tonight. It'll be a lot of fun. We don't want to hear anybody complaining they missed out. So we're glad you're here, and I hope it's a great conference. At this time, I'd like to welcome Darren Reeb to the stage from AEP. To talk about the work they're doing at Mobile Workbench.
Well, good morning. The guys in the back promised my mic wouldn't go hot for the last hour while I coughed, so good job, AV guys. Thank you very much. So Darren Reeve, American Electric Power, I appreciate you guys being here. This is a great opportunity to share a story. I'm not sure I know how to make this work, but we'll do it at some point. Maybe I'll hit a button and that'll bring something up. So this is a great story that I want to share with each and every one of you. It actually starts with a relationship I have with Southern Company, and we're going to talk about something that's going on at American Electric Power right now that is really challenging us to change the way we've done stuff in the field. So long and short of it, if you guys aren't familiar with American Electric Power, I'll give you this quick little session on who we are and how big we are. If you can imagine, we operate in 11 different states. As you can imagine, that's a whole lot of different regulators who have an idea of how you should run your business differently, which is a lot of fun. And we are not only in the distribution business, we use transmission, we also have our power generating plants all across 5.5 million customers. So in that also is 16,000 employees. But that's not near the real true size of our business. We also have a very large contract labor unit that we use with our business partners. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about how we're going to interconnect all of those business partners through technology. That being said, I want to the topic of my conversation today is really about how we're revolutionizing how we interact with our field employees. And so this is a screenshot here of a gentleman that I actually had the privilege of hiring. He was a baseball player and threw his shoulder out. And so Josh Applegate is pictured in a AEP truck. You guys might, have anybody been out in the field and saw what your line mechanics operate in? Yep, absolutely. Steve, I know I've dragged half the ARCOS team around the country to do this. But ultimately, they live each and every day in utility buckets, and they send and receive data. At AEP, that's not necessarily the most efficient way to do things. We are just like the rest of us, right? We're a bunch of engineers, and we do things the way we've always done them, and that's perfect, except for when it's not. And in 2022, it's not, because we're now hiring young men and women to our company who are questioning why we don't just use cell phones. At AEP, we use cell phones, just not to send and receive data. So our operating company presidents had a call to action, and this would have been in about 2018, and they said, we have to change the way we do business. We need a unified platform for damage assessment that everyone can use, indiscriminate of what operating company they're in. And they sent me out on a mission. I had a peer to go and find out what is the best tool. So at the time, as many of the ARCOS family knows, Tom Kirkpatrick, he was my mentor and boss at the time. And so I asked Tom, I said, who does this really well? Who's really good at it? And obviously, those names you guys all know, some of you are here, Southern Company, Florida Power and Light, some others rose to the top, and we started to ask, who does this really well? What do you guys use? How do you do this? And so effectively, we went out on that mission. We got some demos from our friends in Southern Company who were using a platform called SAM6. And so that platform is really a part of where I'm going to take us here with ARCOS Mobile Workbench. But I want to start with where we are. And so where we are today, we utilize a system, homegrown. It's built in Visual Basic. It was written by an AEP employee. You guys see this on a mobile data computer that is slightly archaic, if you can imagine that. It's designed purposefully to be able to send and receive data across an 800 megahertz radio system. So the purpose of that was that we would never be without coverage, right? And we've been doing it for over 20 years that way. We have our own AEP tower radio system that we own and operate across all 11 states. And this software, paired with Pragma Road, PragmaCom, and a whole bunch of technology, allows us to make these really small data packets and send and receive those across our radio. What can it do? Let's be honest. It can't send pictures, it can't send documents, it can't receive, it can't do any of those. So really all it does is send and receive very minute data packets for our field personnel. If you guys can imagine that, it also doesn't place anything on a map. And our guys like to see things on maps, right? So effectively, the software, while it was great in its time, 20 years has been enough. As long as this conference has been going on, it's been deployed in the field at AEP. And if you guys can imagine, there's a little bit more technical debt. How many of you guys have a diagram like this at your company? Anybody? We call this the sun diagram. This is all of the integrations that it takes to make that work. So this is something that we use oftentimes when we onboard new members of our team, just to help them to understand just how complicated it is to run data operations and get information to and from the field at AEP. It's not designed to be an eye chart. If you guys want to see this later, come see me. So effectively, we started out here, we talked about, we've done this over a series of years. Once upon a time, we utilized paper. We would dispatch and we would hand out papers and send guys to the field. Then along came GPS, right, to help you with routing. We then today utilize a mobile data computer. You guys saw the Spectrum screen. But where we want to go is to a different place. And that's our partnership here with ARCOS, is helping us to deploy software that we can get into our users' hands in the field so that they can send and receive not only work, but also pictures and documents, et cetera. So that's where we're headed tomorrow. So Boogie actually did a pretty good intro here around what we were striving to do, which was how do we deploy a software and get everybody on the same page across all of AEP? It's not by chance, I can tell you that. I have some of my team members here with us this week. Ultimately, our goal was to provide field workers, as you guys see, I won't read the slides, with this different way of sending and receiving data in which they can have something that's geographically based. They can connect photos, imagery, damage, all of that. But not only from that standpoint was the other things that Boogie and Bruce all mentioned, which was, we have to figure out how we do it with less people, right? We don't have as many linemen as we once had. We have more work than we've ever had. The capital investment in all of AEP is higher than it's ever been. And then also from a safety perspective, to increase that situational awareness. So how many attended the virtual conference last year? Show of hands. So the funniest part about that conference was I was trying to pitch this initiative to all of the AEP executives, and everything that I heard in that conference was, how could we improve our situational awareness for our field users? And effectively, that's what we're doing with ARCOS Mobile Workbench. So a few things that have happened over the years is that AEP recognized that we don't do things as quickly as our users would like us to do, or our field employees would like us to do. I don't know if any of you in the utility space have that problem, but again, a bunch of engineers who the factor of safety has to be 13 before we can deploy anything. And we've traditionally been used to deploying things via a waterfall methodology. It has to be perfect before we take it to the field. And a couple years ago, we changed our thinking. We deployed a rapid innovation firm called Charge that was really designed at how could we deploy technologies to our field users faster. We started to adopt agility. Rob Reed is here with us today. He's my project manager for the initiative and is an agility coach. And really what we've strived to do is to meet our field users where they are. Ask them. Let's go out and find out how we can do that. And so building on that type of a thought process of going out, meeting with crews, asking them what they need, and then bringing that back, putting in requirements, and partnering with ARCOS. Kyle and Steve are back here. They've been out in the field with us a lot to really understand what the day in the life of a field user is at AEP, from the far reaches of Corpus Christi, Texas, to Rio Grande Valley, all the way across to Wytheville, Virginia, et cetera. It's really funny, though, when you meet with field users, they all believe that their job is uniquely different than their brother in a different state. However, it's really not. They might call it something a little bit different, but learning from them to ensure that what we have is a tool that can satisfy what they need is the key. So building on that, thinking about how we could drive feedback sessions, we also recently deployed Microsoft Teams at AEP. So now we have the ability to connect with all of our field users while they're in the field. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Our focus was that we wanted to be able to address not only unplanned work, but also planned work. Lisa Barton, our COO, came and made a very poignant decision that she wanted us to rationalize our apps. She didn't want our field users to have to go from app A to app B, app C, et cetera, whether or not they were working storm trouble, daily work, inspections, et cetera. And so you guys will see here, the way in which we've thought about this was, how will we deploy a software that can meet all of those different needs? So effectively, the most timely piece was to focus on our damage assessment platform. We today, or in the most recent past, utilized Spectrum, that homegrown Visual Basic software. We also had a couple other vendors that were utilized, inclusive of, but not limited to, Smartsheet and some other tools that would assist us in that. But ultimately, with ARCOS Mobile Workbench, we were able to, or we're starting to be able to deploy that out to all of our field users to make one unified platform. So ultimately, if you guys haven't seen damage assessment, the damage assessment platform in ARCOS Mobile Workbench, we were able to take this to the field and really hear from our field users what they needed. And so ultimately, what their desire was not only to be able to see their work on a platform, be able to get it instantaneously, and actually have notifications. So how many, am I preaching to the choir, how many in the room are already familiar with ARCOS Mobile Workbench? Very few. Okay, very few. Perfect, so at least I'm not telling you everything you already know. The neatest part that we heard from our field users was the delight that they had when they would receive a new outage ticket, and they would get a notification on their phone or on their iPad. And so, if you guys can imagine, I was once a dispatcher at our dispatch center. James Lyles and Bubba Griffin are here from SWEPCO's dispatch center. And ultimately, the way in which our field users would receive work is via the radio, and they would have to get up in the cab of their truck and hit a refresh button and send and receive data. And so by virtue of changing our platform over into a cellular-enabled platform, now, just like your bracket that just went off and somebody just won a game of a team that you follow, a notification pops up on their phone and says, you have a new outage. Can you guys bear with me? Do you guys understand how different that is for a line worker to be in the field and they get a notification that says you have another outage that you need to go work? That's completely different than anything that they had ever experienced. And so then, from that platform, it's one button, and they click on it, and now they can hit navigate, and it connects over into their Apple Maps or their Google Maps, whatever they choose. And now, to be compliant with our hands-free policies at AEP, they can have one-touch navigation, and they throw it up on the dash, and now they can take off, and they're en route. Gone are the days of figuring out how to best get there, or pulling out their paper maps, or typing it into their Garmin system. That's all gone. And so the feedback just from those two features for our field users made them all say, hey, when can I get in that program? I want to be an early adopter. I want this on my device. Can I switch over? And so we set out to have about 10 to 15 users in each of our different operating companies. So again, AEP Texas, SWEPCO, PSO, Appalachian Power Company, Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana Michigan Power. And later, I'll show you a number of how many early adopters we have, because effectively, when you take a platform to field users that makes their lives easier and better and more efficient, it's hard to withhold that technology from them. I'm going to switch gears here a little bit. Rob Craigie and Zach Reed are here. They're actually in the process of deploying Crew Manager and Resource Assist out to all of our users also. We traditionally had utilized Resource on Demand. I had the luxury, I want to say it that way, the blessing to train Resource on Demand by Microsoft. Thankfully, our good friends at ARCOS helped us to sunset that platform because it's very difficult to train, if any of you have ever trained it. Lots of hidden menus. And so ultimately, our storm outage prediction team, or our storm emergency preparedness team, I'm sorry, elected to select Crew Manager and Resource Assist to be the platform that would replace that. And so if you guys have any questions about how that deployment is going, Rob and Zach are happy to speak to that. They're here this week. The last challenge that I want to talk about is the other one that we face, and it was around connectivity in and around vehicle experience, right? So you guys saw that truck that Josh was sitting in, not super comfortable, and ultimately that's his office, right? His mobile office. So he gets in and out of that truck each and every day. Today, we have a mobile data computer like the image you see on the left that sits on a rigid mount stand, and it can send and receive via an 800 megahertz radio. Very small data packets. Where we're headed is we want to be able to deploy cellular data to send and receive images and files, et cetera. But that doesn't just, you can't just flip that switch and make that happen, right? So we have mobile data computers on leases for 3, 5, 7 years. Somebody will help me with the details on that. A long time, because they cost like $6,000 a piece. So we end up putting them on a life cycle or a lifespan. And so effectively what we're striving to go to is a way in which we can have an iPad or a cell phone that an individual can pick up and carry with them out of the truck. So now, if they're assessing damage in a rear lot or in somebody's front yard, et cetera, they can do that data entry where they are, where they're seeing it. In our current process, they would have to take paper notes or keep it in their mind and then walk back to the truck, climb back up, sit down, and start to keystroke that in. So as you can imagine, any professional typists in here? Any of you guys like to type? No? Well, neither do linemen. So when we took that platform out there, and there's this really cool feature, it's an image of a microphone, and it allows you to talk into your device while you're standing in a backyard. And Bubba can tell you, even from Louisiana, it can translate Louisianan into English. And effectively, it knows how to spell squirrel. So any of you who have ever worked in a dispatch center, and you can imagine how many, many different ways there are to spell the word squirrel, it'll fix that for you. So ultimately, the challenge that we had was how do we change the way we send and receive data away from these radios, right? We're keeping the radios. Please don't think that we're getting out of the radio business. We're just not going to use radios for data, because you're not going to be able to load a web page or get a file or send and receive a picture. So we had to do a few things. We had to get consensus amongst all of our operating companies to say, hey, yeah, it's fine. We invested all this money in radios, and we're gonna walk away from it. And just so you guys know, we have a Harris radio system, and we have over, I think we have 1,000 different towers, and you guys can imagine how many trucks. We recently invested about $500 million in revamping all of those radios. So me standing in front of a bunch of executives saying, hey, we're not gonna use that for data anymore. It didn't go over really well, but effectively now they're all seeing the purpose and why we're changing how we're thinking about what we're doing, and the benefits that combine with that are huge. So I'm gonna pause for a second before I get on to the next piece. Any questions about anything I've said so far? You guys are welcome. This isn't like church. You guys can interrupt. Okay, well, if you have those questions, please just throw your hand up. I think I can see. But ultimately, I think that what I'm describing Yeah, go ahead. We have a mic rolling around.
As soon as I get to work, there it goes.
Perfect.
Hi, I'm Ann from SDG&E. Welcome to San Diego.
Thank you.
Curious if you're going to keep the radios for business continuity purposes, so we have cyber, EMP, anything out there, right, where you might have a backup strategy because those little burst packets may still come in handy someday?
Absolutely. So we are maintaining, and thank you for the question. We are maintaining the radios, and we will keep those. We did investigate several different ways in which we could put like a router in the vehicle for those small burst packets. Effectively, the answer that we got back was we're going to use them for voice, but not necessarily for data capability. What we are doing, though, for business continuity is another piece, which is I think 84% of all of our substations have fiber optic that interconnects them. All of our SCADA systems, you guys can imagine all the different sensors. So what we are doing is we're putting Wi-Fi antennas at every one of our substations so that you can utilize that as a rendezvous point. So in that case, and our good friends in Texas, Patrick Rackley's not here, but Joel is, they invite these big storms called hurricanes. And sometimes those hurricanes do havoc on the cellular networks. Hurricane Hannah, some of you might have supported, we lost several different cell towers. So in the future state, if we were dependent upon cellular, we would have that capability to use that rendezvous point. We're doing something else as in conjunction with that, which is, thankfully, one of the good things that came out of the pandemic is half of you decided that you were going to work from home. And of those of you who could work from home, another half of you decided that you wanted to work in land abroad, whether it be in an RV park or someplace else. And so the technology has changed immensely around cellular boosters. We actually partnered with a company who we are deploying cellular boosters in every one of our vehicles over a period of time to increase that. We were in, where were we, Wytheville, Virginia? Glenn Edwards is the distribution supervisor there, and he took us purposefully out to a valley that had no service, right? We had 3 different cellular devices. We had a T-Mobile, AT&T, and Verizon. And ultimately, all 3 of the phones said no service. And then we turned on our cellular booster, and they all went to 4G LTE. So if you guys can imagine, the antenna in this really nice handheld computer that Boogie was referencing that we all carry around, that antenna is not near as strong as the antenna in a cellular booster. And so there's actually a lot of areas where you have cell signal, you just can't capture it and utilize it. But with the cell booster, you're able to do that. And so we've seen huge gains. It's changed the way in which our field personnel can connect to cellular, but the backhaul with fiber optic is our business continuity side. Go ahead.
I'm Amy with CenterPoint Energy. Are you looking at purchasing cell phones or iPads for all of your linemen and head linemen, or is this going to be something that will be left at a center and they pick up as they drive the truck, or like assigned to a truck? Are you providing that all to each and every head lineman and lineman on your docks?
Awesome question. All of these, did she get the script beforehand? Thank you, Amy. So that's a great question. What are you going to do, right? How are you going to put devices in the hands of our field employees? Today, right, so let's back up. Today, we have a mobile data computer per vehicle that we have. Well, as you guys can imagine, we don't have a vehicle per employee. They seat 2 or 3 or 4 people in them. And so the ratio of employees to vehicles and mobile data computers is about 40% of our physical workforce. In the future state, though, the thought process of, are you going to give them all a cell phone or an iPad? At what classification are they going to be before they do that? So we have varying opinions. Each of our operating companies run their own profit and loss. And so in the great state of Texas, I'm pretty sure that line mechanic C's and above all have a company cell phone. Now, union, non-union, AEP Texas is a non-union organization, and so they made that determination. Steve, you got to help me. I&M, is it all line mechanic A's and above have a company cell phone? So ultimately, we're debating that. And each of the operating companies are taking a little bit different stance on what that is, but we didn't want to profess how that technology deployment would be. We've also investigated with our friends at Apple the opportunity to share an iPad. I don't know if you guys are familiar with your Apple ID, but ultimately it's not super easy to hand it from me to you to somebody else and put multiple different profiles. And so that was a business problem that we needed to solve. It doesn't work exactly the way we would love it to, but if you've ever been into an Apple store, not every one of those employees has their own dedicated iPad. They walk back and they pick it up out of a box and they put in their code and it pulls their profile across. And so one of the things that we're investigating right now, Amy, is that exactly is what is the number of devices that we need for our field employees? How do they want to use it? And so what we did in our pilot, and you guys are going to hear a little bit more about this, but what we did was we had early adopters, and majority of them already had a company cell phone, but we took out an iPad with it just to see what that user experience has been. Ironically, majority of our field employees actually like the cell phone for the convenience of being able to put it in their pocket versus having a big iPad. Now, when we get into the next part of this, which is around construction and timekeeping, majority of them who discussed construction work stream, if I'm building a multiple pole line extension, et cetera, and I want to see all of that information, and I want to be able to redline my units, then we think that at the crew level, an iPad is probably more beneficial. So that brings me to this piece here, which is the planned side of our work. And so we needed to not only have some way in which we could handle unplanned, right? Outages, damage outside party. I don't know if that happens across all of the country, but in AEP territory, these really nice people like to run into our poles pretty frequently. So all of those things are unplanned. But on a daily basis, we invest a ton of money building new facilities to new customers, rebuilding power lines, et cetera. And so having a platform that enables us to do that electronically was vital for our crews to not have to switch from one to the other. Today, they do it all in Spectrum and on paper. And you can imagine that paper takes forever to come back, and then for somebody to do what I call swivel chairing, where they read a piece of paper and then they keystroke that all into a system so that we can close out work orders. In a very future state, or a near state, we will have our construction work stream. Steve Blevins here from I&M is actually our product owner on our construction work stream, who's really designed is to get to a world in which our field personnel can send and receive all electronically. They don't have to go into the office at all. That was another big push that COVID helped us with, was we had to solve that problem. What if we have another pandemic? Half of our crews didn't even report to a show up. They went directly from their house. And so having that technology in a future state will enable us to be able to send that work to them. They can redline the work and modify it, and then also expedite the process of closing that work order faster. And then the last part of this is around timekeeping. Today, all of our field personnel do some data entry into their Spectrum unit. Again, 1999 called, and they want their technology back. It's not super user-friendly, but ultimately, having the ability to meet our field users where they are and track their time. Negatively, today, we have to ask them the question, are you driving? Are you en route? Are you there? But with cellular technology and ARCOS Mobile Workbench, we will get to a place in which we will geofence their show-up location or the shop, and we know once they have left. And with GPS tracking, we can show how long they were traveling, and when they arrived at their job, how long they were at their job, and then when they drove away. So we're really striving to get to a place in which we're not asking professional utility workers to be timekeepers. On average, our last time study, we pay the average line mechanic 30 minutes per day of labor to modify their timesheet. I didn't get a response out of that, which means that it didn't astonish any of you. Okay, so the point of that is that if you think about the expense of labor and paying line mechanics to do timekeeping, just doesn't make any sense. So effectively, with this platform, we'll be able to have it all in one, and then be able to bring it all together so that now we have their time reporting for damage assessment, outages, construction work, et cetera. And then there's one more piece of this. Before I get into our strategy on how we went about this, is I made mention before about our business partners. And I have to believe that's not unique to AEP. Is that unique? Do you guys all use business partners to execute labor throughout the utility industry? Yes, everybody does, okay. So much so that in Corpus Christi District, Joel, you're gonna have to help me with this, make sure I get this number right. We installed over $100 million, I think $101 million worth of capital last year in 2021. Of that $101 million of capital install, 81 million of that was done by business partners. 20 million was done by AEP employees. So if you can imagine, we have to get better at sending and receiving data with our business partners. And so part of our initiative here was how do we connect our business partners to be more like AEP employees? Instead of having to work through paper, what we're trying to get away from, how can we get to a platform in which they're on the same platform as a red badge AEP employee? And so that's another piece that I want to talk about in this implementation strategy. Any other questions before I go on to this? Because this is going to get heavy for just a second. Go ahead.
So we're looking to deploy. Hang on a second. Let me catch up with you here at the microphone here. All the way in the front. Do your name.
Art Romero, San Diego Gas and Electric.
Yeah.
So we're looking to deploy Rockstar devices, which are for our Soul Safety Worker program.
Yeah.
So when radios and cell phones don't work, they still have a device that'll connect to satellite. We actually are using Bluetooth technology to marry it to a cell phone so they can use the phone, but we're running into things with cybersecurity. So how are you all handling things where cybersecurity starts playing, and more recently with what's been going on?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I don't know if you guys got all that, but talking about utilizing satellite technology or connectivity, pairing it with a mobile device, and cybersecurity. Let's go there. That's not been easy, has it? I'm looking at my team here. One way in which we're doing with cybersecurity that is availing us the ability to do that is that ARCOS doesn't push anything to us. Everything we do is a pull. So all of our APIs will pull the information down to that device, and then we push to ARCOS. ARCOS has it out there, and we have an integration strategy that allows us to meet all of our cybersecurity recommendations. I will say this, though. That's a really cool question, and I know that there's people at this table that could answer it better than I can. It's been a challenge, right? I mean, you think about connectivity, how are we going to send and receive data? How do we meet all of those, especially given the world we live in today? It's crazy. But part of that, and we did investigate, and part of our strategy includes cellular or satellite phones for those areas that we know in West Texas. Boogie, you are from West Texas. They like to spread everything out all over the world in West Texas. And so some of our circuits out there go 40, 50 miles. And so having the ability to get to that isn't via cellular is part of it. I'm going to have to circle back on that, though. Is that all right? Anything else? Any other pieces before we get into implementation strategy? Okay. So as I alluded to, this didn't all come by chance, right? And it wasn't just about a damage assessment platform. It was about how could we do this in a strategic way that wasn't being thrust upon our field users, but was answering the call to action that they had. Somebody made a comment about a bag or a cell phone, where he was talking about how many of you did your banking today on your phone. When we do our implementation strategy and we're out in front of field users, I ask the question, how many of you had a cell phone when you graduated high school? And it's funny, majority of them did, because majority of our line resources today have since graduated high school and are younger than me. And then I'll ask the next question, how many of you had a bag phone? And I usually get one person in the room who remembers what a bag phone was. Yep, here we go. Let's do it in here. How many of you had a bag phone? Like 60% of the room. Perfect. So on that bag phone, do you remember, did it store numbers? Anyone? Did it store numbers the first time, or did you still keep a phone book beside it so you could? Yeah, a Rolodex. Okay, perfect. So then the next question that we normally ask is, how long from having that bag phone was it before you had a cell phone that you could send and receive a text on? This is usually where people tell me they had pagers, right? It was a while, right? For most of you who had a bag phone, it was 3, 5, 7 years before you could send a text message. And then what Boye alluded to is today, my guess is majority of you checked your phone to either send an email or a bank account or communicate before you brushed your teeth, right? The odds are you now have this computer in your pocket. Well, the reason why I bring you that analogy is part of our implementation strategy was to do just that. We wanted to give our field users a bag phone, not literally, but give them a tool that made some incremental change better so that they could communicate. And what that was effectively was how we decided to roll out our early adopter program. So I don't know how to get that back up on the screen, but I want to speak to this, which is in early 2021, we started with assessment. And our focus was, how can we deploy technology to our field users in a manner in which it will help them? I talked about the notifications, the routing, the visualization of those outages on a map that now is in the palm of their hand and they can get out of their truck, right? But then the next thing we had to do was we had to look at how are we going to communicate, right? So back again to cellular, what's it going to be? Are we going to stay dependent upon this radio system? No, is the answer. It took a long time for us to get our operating companies to agree to that. But effectively, now they understand why we need to leverage cellular data. The next part of this is around damage outside party. I talked about the driving awards that people like to tell us how cool our poles are by hitting them. We get a lot of those in AEP. And the process to recoup the cost of our damage by outside party, whether it's a dig in or a pole getting hit, is very labor intensive to get all of that information, right? You guys are probably very familiar with. Insurance companies don't want to just pay a bill because we said so. They need a whole lot of data to prove that their driver was the one who cost, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to replace a utility pole. So that process in of itself is one piece in in our damage assessment platform that we had to figure out a way to get better. 11 years ago, AEP deployed call out. And Jim Nowak, I think I see him back here in the back of the room, he was at AEP at that time. So thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. And myself, Rob Craigie, a few others on the team here deployed call out. But when we deployed it, the call to action was really for our distribution side. Our transmission side didn't have enough call outs to warrant why would we deploy call out. And so through restructuring and different purposes, it's ironic, but this past year, Rob can tell you, this past year, the platform that they were utilizing to manage their call-out database was being sunset. And so they needed a new call-out platform. And fortunately, we already had deployed that 11 years ago in the distribution side, and so we're extending that over to our transmission side of the house. The really cool part about that is now when we get into ICS and Crew Manager and everything else, now we're all on the same platform. As I move on down here around crew management and resource assist, I referenced earlier this thought process around resource on demand, which was a platform that we used for I don't know how long, 7, 8, 10 years, something like that, a long time. And the adoption was just not there. So let's talk about the adoption of platforms in your utility. If you provide a software that is very difficult to use, people won't use it. It's just the truth. They'll go back to paper, they'll go back to whatever worked in the past. And so that's what we saw with Resource on Demand. And so when we sought out to solve that problem, we wanted a platform that was very user-friendly, that everyone could adopt, and could interconnect not only our native crews, but also our business partners, and then help us as we require mutual assistance resources. And then the last part of this here, you guys will see this construction, digital work, packet scheduling, time reporting, et cetera. As we got into this, we heard more and more users say, well, could we get a platform that would do that? So remember, we just set out to have one unified damage assessment platform that then grew into this big field mobility initiative. Andrew was here with me on that whole journey. Andrew Dill has spent a lot of time talking about this. But what we had to figure out is how could we strategically roll this out in a methodology that would get user adoption? How would we ensure that users would actually use the system and be delighted to use the system, want to use the system? And so if you guys haven't deployed anything via agility, the agile process versus waterfall, those of you engineers who can think about how we're going to lay out every window and nut and bolt that it will take to build a skyscraper versus let's build a structure and then let's talk to users about the build process. If you guys have built your own house, you understand this process. You had to make all those design decisions before you ever saw the house, right? About what color tile, my wife loves that. And what color the cabinets are going to be well before you even have seen the kitchen. Through the agility process, we've done it completely differently. And so we've actually got to a minimally viable product, which means it receives outages and it puts it on a map. You can't update the ticket, you can't tell anybody else except they're in our platform. But what that's given us the opportunity to do is continuously enhance that platform to meet our field users where they want to be. So they can now take a picture of damage, they can place icons on a map, they can receive notifications, they can get turn-by-turn directions with the touch of a button, no more typing in an address. And then grow from that to how can we build on our damage assessment prowess into construction? And how can we extend this out to our business partners? And so our real goal was to do what we call a pull method, where we just show you a piece, and then users are clamoring at the door to say, can we be part of that too? And so we went around, we started in AEP, Texas. Joel Coolier's here someplace, I'm not sure where he's at. We started in AEP, Texas, in Corpus Christi, and then we went to Rio Grande Valley. Just a week-long engagement, and we took the platform and we loaded it on people's phones. And we took linemen in the field, hopped up in the cab of their truck, and went and worked a trouble ticket. And the feedback, Scott's here, Scott Schwartz has been out with us, the feedback of delight that we received from our field users of this is the first time that IT, that's like a bad word in the utility place, IT has ever came out to see how we do what we do and has ever asked me questions about how I would like to see it. And so that has grown like wildfire across our industry, our utilities, so much so that we set out for 150 users. Effectively, we now have, over 450 early adopters, and we're not in prime time yet. We started this in November. November, right after, I guess, right before Thanksgiving. We spent 3 weeks in the field in November, and ultimately, then we took the holiday break, and then we spent 3 weeks in January, which was really awesome in South Bend, Indiana. Nice and chilly in January. But effectively, the delight from our users has been, you're now solving my problems through technology and giving me the ability to give you feedback on how I want it to be. And so that's what's really been great for myself in my partnership, or AEP's partnership with ARCOS, is that ability to turn those requirements around and take user feedback. I think I see Jeff Masters out there. To take that user feedback and to help a platform that hopefully, at some point or another, you guys will all see is very likely going to be an industry standard. And so the really great part about this is those users who have the ability to see it their way, right? Many of them said, I think one quote was, it's about damn time, right? Like, how long did you want me to be out here in the field trying to be as efficient and safe as I can be? And you're willing to spend $6,000 on a battery press or a drill, yet you won't put the technology in my hand to send and receive data so I can be more efficient. And so it's really been a big blessing. I've enjoyed it. I know the team has enjoyed it, and we're getting a lot of very positive feedback. Okay, any questions on that implementation strategy? I went really, really fast through that, but any pieces, parts? I love these quotes. They make it all worth it, in my opinion. And that's really the crux of what it is that I do at American Electric Power. I know you guys saw my title. It's the Business Technology Optimization Manager, which effectively means I try to solve business problems through technology for our field employees. And this last slide you'll see is we ask 100 users, and now you can see over 450 different devices have elected to be in an early adopter program to help us and give us feedback on how the system's configured and is being used today in the field. Okay. Any questions, comments, feedback? I'm happy to stick around. I think I might be the only thing standing between you guys and a bathroom break. And an hour and 50 minutes is a long time. But I wanted to, before I step off stage, I want to thank many of the partners that I have at ARCOS. Andrew, Steve, Kyle, Scott, Teresa, I'm not sure if Teresa's here. This has been a really, really cool journey for us. It started, Bruce, when was it, 2018? Bruce and Lisa and Andrew came to AEP, and we started talking about a way in which we could partner to build something really great. And effectively, Field Mobility was born. And so if you guys have questions, majority of our implementation team is here. Look them up. Zach, Rob, Steve, I'm going to miss somebody. But we have members of this entire team that has been rolling this out across AEP over the past year, so I'm sure they'll be happy to answer any questions. Am I supposed to hand this to you, Lisa? No? Am I supposed to release everybody to break? I'm literally. Okay, very good, Danny. Whew.
You're off the hook. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh my gosh. Thank you, Darren. I learned so much. Thank you. That was wonderful. I can't believe that you all were so quiet. I would think you'd have had a million questions for Darren. How did you? Why did you? When did you? If you have more questions for Darren, remember that the conference mobile app, go to this session, you can submit questions there, and it stays open for questions for half an hour or an hour even, I can't remember which it is, after this session, and that way Darren will know what the questions are, and you can find him later to get an answer, or we can find a way to get answers for you. Man, it almost made me cry when he talked about the guy in the field saying, wait a minute, you want to know what I want? I thought that was so cool, and then it's going to make me cry now too. Okay, anyway, now I'm the only thing standing between you and a break. We're on a break until 10:15. At 10:15, the breakout sessions will start. Those will be held in Commodore A and B, which I think they're this way. So try to be on time for those. Check the conference app so you know where you want to be and what room to show up in. In those sessions, please make sure that you, and this one too, make sure you complete the surveys that you can access in the mobile conference app so that we know how we did, what was meaningful, what wasn't. Lunch will be on the Bay Terrace at noon. Okay, so there will be 2 different breakout sessions following this. Lunch at noon, but then at 1, we're back in here for a general session. So keep that in mind so that you don't get lost. And I guess that's it. Let me release you till 10:15. Your breakout sessions will start. Thank you. And thanks again, Darren.